Well, last week we were working on ballasting or putting the cinders and dirt and stuff around the layout. And this week we want to tie the backdrop into that material that we've put down.
Right.
So last week we were using dilute white glue and just dispersing these. These are actual cinders from a roundhouse.
Yes.
And we're just kind of dispersing them around the turntable. But we've got the painted backdrop over here, and right now the painted backdrop just kind of plunks down up against the railroad. And what we want to do is cover up that seam. There's also a couple of areas, this always happens, especially when you're doing large areas, where the material didn't quite get glued down.
Oh, and it's on the loose.
So you got to do it. We're going to do a little touch-up, add a little more material. We'll just get that out of the way before we proceed. And then I'm going to take Sculptamold here and create a fillet. Now, this is, again, something we talked about last week, to create this fillet between the railroad and the backdrop. And so I'm starting off by painting that in to try to make the color of the fillet match the surrounding territory, creating a color blend between the color of the railroad itself and the dirt in the backdrop.
Boy, that's got to be difficult.
And then we're going to try to blend the vegetation by adding in some vegetation to the area and match that in as well.
Right.
Now there's a kind of challenging area back there where, clear back when we were painting the backdrop, I wanted a sandy hill, and then to create a blend between the sandy hill on the backdrop so that it literally becomes three-dimensional and comes right out onto the layout.
Right.
So we're using these very, very affordable apple barrel paints. There's also the Americana label,
Right.
which is the same paint. It's just, I don't know, for some reason they call some of it Americana and some of it apple barrel.
Oh, they put another label on it.
But it's all made by the same company.
Right.
Anyway, it's all very affordable paint. It's all craft paint, and that's what we're going to be using to, it's what we use to paint the backdrop, and it's what we're going to be using to color in the fillet here.
Right.
Now the fillet is made of Sculptamold, and if you watched last week, we added some of this paint directly to the Sculptamold, so it already has a little bit of color to it. But as it dries, the color all but disappears, and it tries to go back to its original white.
Oh my gosh.
So we're applying a wash. I'm taking the dark colored paints and really diluting them down in water, and just kind of brushing that out onto the Sculptamold, and it just sucks down in there.
Oh wow.
And I know you've done this same technique on a lot of things.
Right.
But it kind of sucks down into the cracks, and it really brings out the detail. I'm going really, really dark here because, again, the colors tend to shift and go lighter as it dries. Sometimes it goes darker, sometimes it goes lighter, and you just kind of have to let it dry and see what you've got. There's also these little bits of Sculptamold, little hardened stray pieces, and I need to pick those up as we go. You'll notice I'm also brushing it onto the ties anywhere where the Sculptamold got onto the ties, and it just kind of hides that. The dark color sort of soaks in and covers up the areas where the Sculptamold got on the ties.
One of the things I've noticed is we don't want to go too dark with it.
Yeah, the color that the Sculptamold dried is pretty close to the actual ground cover.
Right.
And so I want to blend in where it's a problem, where the ballast is, well, you can see the edge of the Sculptamold there, and that's what I'm trying to cover up. But I don't want to spoil the color of the Sculptamold because it actually looks pretty good.
Yes, it reminds me of the dirt where I used to live, where the town I grew up.
Yeah, it has that wonderful light.
It's a clay.
Yeah, clay, dusty.
Yeah.
I sure don't want to ruin that. So
No.
I'll probably be coming back in here and dry brushing lighter color over the top of it. I just need to try to blend that together, and then I'm going to come back and ballast this area some more, add some more cinders to try to cover up that edge between the Sculptamold and the ballast. Now this is that area where I want to blend the hill that's on the backdrop in with this hill on the layout itself.
Right.
I want this to look like the sand and the dirt from the backdrop is actually cascading out onto the layout. And I'm actually even adding in some natural sand. We've got all that sand we used at the sand house.
Right.
And so I'm spilling that around here too. And I think that's working out pretty well.
Oh, sure.
It's blending right between the hill on the backdrop to the hill on the layout.
Exactly. Well, it's starting to look pretty realistic because I don't see any demarcation line or anything anymore.
Yeah, it's blending neatly between the two.
Right.
It just kind of goes from three-dimensional to two-dimensional.
Yes. And where some of those little cracks are happening, I just leave them because that's quite natural looking.
Yeah, I love that, just like it is.
Yeah.
And where it kind of goes in and out and up and down, it creates a sense of the vegetation not being a straight line.
Oh, and it never is.
So I think that's a pretty natural looking seam right there. You wouldn't really guess that that's a seam between the backdrop and the layout.
Not even.
And I'm pretty happy with the way that hill is going from the sandy hill up on the backdrop down into the sandy hill on the railroad.
Right.
Yeah, it's never going to be exactly perfect, but it's pretty darn close.
And that's all you want to have. It's pretty darn close.
And I can't resist the temptation to play with trains, so I wanted to see how the seam would look if we were in the locomotive.
Ah, there we are.
As it goes around on the turntable. And I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
And it was some magnificent screwing around, too.
Right.
Now, as I mentioned, in some places we want to add some little clumps of vegetation right up against the clumps of vegetation that are on the backdrop, just in some places, and then color that and blend it in such a way that, again, it feels like it just goes from two-dimensional to three-dimensional.
Right.
And just kind of shove some of these. These are those woodland scenics chunks. And the problem is they're kind of small and loose, and they want to go all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes will roll them between my hands and then put that out onto the railroad, and then spritz the thin CA glue on here, and that'll harden it into a piece, and then stand back.
I was just going to say, stand way back because it gases off or does something, and your eyes
look
will
at that
water.
vapor coming off of there. Don't get that in your eyes.
No.
But notice also, as that vapor is forming, it's changing the color of the woodland scenics chunks. And it gives it a natural blending of color. And then be careful that you let the glue dry up enough that it doesn't stick the whole thing to your finger.
No, that's always a problem.
And in fact, I did that here a little bit. But it's kind of a pain, literally a pain.
Literally.
But you can kind of reorganize that. Now, this isn't really gluing it down to the railroad. It's just kind of forming it into more of a solid chunk and changing the colors around. That's all I'm really trying to do. And then I'm going to add some thin white glue to try to anchor it in place a little bit better, because it isn't all that anchored by doing it this way.
Right.
So there's the net result right there. These little random pieces down by the tracks are just on the loose down there, and I'll pick those up. But I'm just trying to, you can see I'm trying to align the chunks with where there's a picture of sagebrush on the backdrop, because now I'm going to come in with Italian sage as the color.
Right.
And just daub that. That's the same color we used on the backdrop.
Right.
And now just daub that on there and try to blend the two colors together again, so that the two-dimensional backdrop just becomes the three-dimensional layout.
Right. I kind of like those little green chunks though down there because it would have some plants growing here and there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I'll just apply a little dilute white glue and let them be
Let
there.
them be there.
The weeds, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when we painted the sagebrush onto the backdrop, we used kind of this same technique where we painted the green onto the backdrop and then daubed the Italian sage over the top of that.
Right.
And that's what created the look, and then we even went with a lighter color on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the hope is that we can get the same look by using a medium green and then daubing the Italian sage over the top of it.
Sounds like a good idea.
And then just keep daubing that on there until the two blend together.
Right.
And it's working pretty well.
I think so.
As is always the case, do it in little bits and pieces because you can always go forward, you can never go backward.
Oh, dear.
So just keep adding it until it looks correct.
Yes.
And then stop.
And then stop.
Now, this is really fun. Years ago, you made these tall tufts of grass.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just the right exact color.
Yes, they are.
And we thought, let's stick some of those here right at the edge of the backdrop and the layout. Look how nicely that blends.
And I want to put a few more in so that train that I created in the background doesn't look like it's just grinding to a halt in the middle of nowhere.
Well, and you painted all of this grass in here.
Yeah.
And so we could put in as much of this natural grass, this three-dimensional grass, right up against the backdrop as we want to.
Because the train's supposed to be going around the corner and behind that hill there, but maybe not.
Well, we can't add too much grass in this case.
That's right. We will hide it with some grass.
We'll just keep going until it looks just right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the finished look right there. We're going to augment it some more, but you can kind of get a sense right there of how it's all coming together. And you really don't notice the separation now between the railroad and the backdrop.
It looks good.
And again, everywhere it's loose, I'm adding a little glue. I'll just keep adding dilute glue until everything settles down and stays in one place.
Right.
Now, tire marks, ruts in the ground. Our friend Ralph Gochner put us onto this.
It works.
And he put a couple wheels on an axle in HO scale, and then he just runs it back and forth across his railroad, and it leaves ruts.
Right.
And I've actually made up 3 of these axles now with different kinds of tires on them, and I just do this. I just roll it back and forth and back and forth. Where this has a lot of loose material and that kind of heavy granular material, it crushes that down and makes it look like trucks have been going in and out of here.
Exactly.
And so it's a little bit of work. I'm putting quite a bit of down pressure on here. And but it's crushing the loose material and flattening it all out exactly the way it would if cars and trucks were going in and out of here.
Right.
And the more I do it, notice how it's all flattening out and looking like it's well traveled.
Right.
The well-traveled road. And then in this area up to the edge of the roundhouse, I thought, well, when they back trucks up in here, there's only enough room for them to come in a very particular way. So that would just leave 2 wheel ruts here.
Right.
And so I've just very carefully done that so that it's just smushed down into 2 wheel ruts. We did this exact same thing when we were doing the wheel ruts for the truck over by the water tank, but over there it's all muddy. And so I ran the wheels back and forth through the wet Sculptamold, and look at how nicely that made wheel ruts. Here's a link to that video if you haven't seen it. But it's a lot of fun. You can actually, like I say, run these wheels right through the wet Sculptamold and create mud ruts that exact way.
Yes.
I love the look.
I do too.
But in this case, just using the wheels to crush down the cinders and make it look, because this is exactly what a real truck does. It just kind of crushes down the loose material and cinders and dirt and whatever and compacts it. And there's the look. Right
I
there.
like it.
Now we've got one last little area to do, and that's where the curve goes behind the roundhouse here. And this is where you built that beautiful barbed wire fence back here.
That was a fun build.
And so I think that just turned out so nice. All I'm doing is just adding some more ballast and calling it good. Because where the Sculptamold is right up against the barbed wire fence here, I think that's just as good as it gets.
That's just how it looks too.
It's perfect, just like that. So just blend it in with a little ballast and call it good enough.
Right.
So all that remains to be done with the cinders is this little area right in front of the turntable. And on Tuesday, I want to do that using dextrin.
Oh.
Because we talked about that before. And I just want to show everybody how to use dextrin in a situation like this. So that'll be Tuesday's show. And I hope you're going to want to see that. So if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe. And you can do that by clicking on the upcoming blue button. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here on Tuesday.
Right.
We'll see ya.
We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.